Hello to everybody tuning in. My name is Carlos, and I'm a student at ODU putting together an instructional video that aims to explain operational security, alongside its applications such as those found in everyday situations, and even the particular tools that are actually used in operational security itself. So, operational security, what is it? Operational security is also referred to as operations security, or OPSEC for short. So, what it is it has to do with the protection and identification of information that adversaries would normally target. So, another way of thinking of it is in the context of conflict or adversarial relationships. Essentially, OPSEC just helps ensure the safety of information that has the potential of being used against the victim or target. Or it could also be thought of as just the adversary trying to gain some sort of advantage over the other party. So with operational security, it's important that this process is understood as one that is continuous and ongoing. And it is a series of 5 stages, as you can see. And it's a cycle as well. That's why I say ongoing. So the first step is identification of critical information, which, as mentioned before, this stage has to do with recognizing those parts of data that could be used against you. And a possible example of this could be your address, per se, or say like sensitive bank details, things like that, things of that nature. So just stuff that could be used against you. Second one is analysis of threats. So what do you know about the adversary or adversaries? What are they targeting, and why would they be targeting it? Knowing this kind of stuff helps, because knowing where the interest of your adversary lies can help you respond and counteract with whatever they're trying to bring at you. Number 3 is analysis of vulnerabilities. After threats is analyzing vulnerabilities. This simply refers to a weakness that someone could exploit. So it's not an immediate threat per se. It's more so what initially follows right before there's a threat. So this is the moment where the hacker gets their foot in the door. But pretty much the whole vulnerability thing comes down to how the information is managed or protected. If it's not handled safely, then obviously those with the wrong intent are going to take notice in whatever weaknesses are present. Next step is assessment of risks. Risks occur when a threat and a vulnerability intersect. So essentially, whenever it gets to the point when there's a person with malintent and there's a weakness present, then we could say that there's a risk at hand. However, there's no real useful... I apologize. If there's no real useful information or valuable information, then we can't really say that there's a risk at hand. It is pretty much just a matter of focusing resources on areas where they're necessary or where they're needed or where there's actually a danger present, if that makes sense. Last and final step is application of countermeasures. This is the part, this part is the response by the person being targeted, where they finally address the risk itself. The countermeasures they apply should eliminate the risks, but it won't necessarily eliminate the threat itself, because you got to keep in mind that hackers are constantly making attempts. There might be more than one person trying to gain access to your information. So with that, it's an ongoing process. So as defenses are strengthened, other areas might present vulnerabilities. So, and the same thing with the threats. The threats themselves can change, so countermeasures have to take different approaches. So that's why it's important to apply them accordingly. Okay. Now, if I was going to rank the 5 OPSEC stages, this is how I would order them. I'd start with identify, or I'd start with the step identify critical information. And I put this at the top first simply because I feel that ensuring that you're up to speed just should always come first in like any context, really. Because if you're not familiar with what's valuable or, like what's likely to be targeted, then you won't know what to protect. Simple as that. Number 2, apply countermeasures. I feel like this part's very important, and it lands on the number 2 spot because unlike the other stages, I feel like this one is actively or directly preventing the harm. Because, with no countermeasures, I mean, the operational security efforts have no way of being implemented. So, number 3 is analyzing threats. So, having an idea of who or what's targeting your information beforehand. As I said before, I believe it provides a significant insight as to what could be expected from the attacker. So, as I mentioned before, it helps you better prepare, better protect. Fourth spot is analyze vulnerabilities. And I put this here because I think it's best to take notice in your weaknesses only after you're certain that a threat and the critical information are present. So once those two are in place, then I feel like that's when the vulnerabilities could start rolling in. But other than that, I feel like knowing your weaknesses is still helpful. I'm not saying it's not, but I feel like analyzing threats and the critical information would come first. And lastly, assess risks. Same concept. I feel like this one in chronological order it would come last. I feel. This stage usually doesn't come until the other ones are already in place. It's still meaningful, of course. However, you can't make a risk assessment until the other factors are known. So that's why I placed this one at 5, even though I'm not taking away from its importance, but that's how I feel. I feel like in chronological order, it would make best sense at number 5. To give you a specific example of operational security, let's say that you're on a mission to successfully undergo a bank transaction. So how would operational security help in this scenario? So following the 5 OPSEC stages, if we identify the critical information, right? What would that be? This would be stuff like login information, bank accounts, bank account numbers, of course, and transaction history. So again, this is the stuff that the adversaries are trying to use against you, the stuff that they are targeting. If we look at applying countermeasures, these will be things like an effective password, multi-factor authentication, using your own network, stuff that I mentioned before. And also you could do this, you could keep the device equipped or updated with antivirus software. That's something else that could help, or a good example of a countermeasure. Analysis of threats. In this case, this would be stuff like, is there malware on the device? Is the cyber criminal trying to steal bank information? Are you seeing suspicious financial requests or demands? So an example of this is like phishing, which we hear a lot of. Number 4, is analyze vulnerabilities, which in this context, you could think of it as an ineffective password or using a public network. Essentially just the opposite of the countermeasures. So ineffective password, effective password, ineffective password. Own network, use a public network. Keeping, so this one's different. It would be helpful to just keep sensitive info, or not helpful, sorry. This one wouldn't be helpful. Keeping sensitive info in an unsafe place is obviously a no-go. Lastly, we have assess risks. So if we're talking about the context of an online bank transaction, then we could say, what if the person has a weak login routine? Like they don't hide their screen, or they constantly use the same username or password. And that sort of leads into what I already mentioned here. They don't conceal their credentials or information, and if they're likely to fall for scam attempts. Like this could mean if they're not educated, or if the scam risk itself is just a very good one, a very believable one. That can mean one of two things. So for this example, we'll continue in the context of online banking. So we've already established that the primary threat is cyber criminals looking to steal login credentials and access sensitive financial info, right? If we look at the vulnerability side, we have the weak passwords and logging in through public networks are as both causes for vulnerability. So to counteract this, my operational security plan targets these vulnerabilities by supporting them with improved login practices like complex passwords and two-factor authentication. And as a second layer of defense, connections will be encrypted to ensure that users operate off of a secure connection or a secure network. And lastly, you can never go wrong with educating the users themselves. And this is because this is the opportunity where users can get those pointers on what to look out for, or just any red flags that might have to do with trying to compromise their finances. Lastly, I'm running short on time here. I'll be presenting the 2 tools that would make browsing safer during an online investigation. The tools that I chose are HTTPS Everywhere and uBlock Origin. Those are the 2 I chose. Beginning with HTTPS Everywhere, this tool makes it to where the websites you visit are forced to use secure HTTPS connections. What this does is encrypt your data to where it can't be accessed by outside parties. The installation is not complicated either. All that you have to do is do an app store search or an online download for a computer add-on, and that's it. That's all you got to do. After it's installed, it starts working automatically, and after that, any HTTP site you visit converts into an HTTPS. As for uBlock is a great advertisement and tracker blocker. It essentially just helps by preventing websites from tracking your activity. It also helps remove potentially malicious content, which ultimately just helps protect your privacy and safety. uBlock Origin also has a simple installation process similar to HTTPS Everywhere. It's an add-on that you just put on your computer, you look up and install. And conveniently, it also activates by default once it's equipped, so the ads and trackers will be blocked once you start using it, or it could also be toggled off, and it can be unblocked if need be. And that will conclude my presentation. Thank you for watching.